For those who don't know me, my name's Jamie Penrith. I am a passionate campaigner for animal welfare, specifically welfare as it relates to dogs and animals affected by the behaviour of dogs. I've talked about the BVA before in previous videos and how the BVA are making statements that they cannot back up. One of those specific questions was to provide evidence that reward-based training only was the most effective training for when it came to teaching a dog to avoid or choosing not to chase, attack or kill another animal, whether the owner was there or not. And the British Veterinary Association have kindly responded to it. What they haven't done is answered the question that was asked. So there's a couple of replies that the BVA have given, and I want to go through these replies. Now ideally I would like to take Dr. Malcolm Morley, who's the BVA president, and I'd like to sit him across the table from me and have this discussion with him, or another discussion. I'm completely open to whatever discussion you want to have on this topic, Dr. Morley, and I will challenge you directly, because I know that what I'm saying is absolutely true and it doesn't have any agenda behind it whatsoever. I extend the opportunity for you to accept that offer and sit across the table from me, and we shall live stream our conversation. We shall debate the evidence and we shall debate your position statement before a global audience. I offer you that opportunity. Whether you choose to accept it or not is entirely up to you. But let's come to the statement that you've given, or the response that you've given on behalf of the British Veterinary Association. And this is in response to a question asking for evidence to support the BVA statement that reward-based training is the most effective training when it comes to stopping an off-lead dog from choosing to chase or attack or kill another animal. Okay, livestock animal, wildlife animal, companion animal, doesn't really matter. Do you have the evidence to support your statement? As with all our positions, it is fully referenced and was developed through a robust evidence-led process. And they've given a link to the position statement. Now I've gone into that link on the position statement. Now let me just tell you that there are 13 references. You're talking about something here that's going to affect millions and millions of animals, not just dogs, millions of animals, not just the dogs, but the animals affected by the behaviour of the dogs. And your robust evidence-led process has relied upon 13 references. Of those, 5 are biased. And I say that they're biased because I know that the authors who have conducted the research that you have cited are openly, publicly against electronic training collars. So their evidence submission can be dismissed, or certainly dismissed as being heavily flawed, heavily biased. That's 5. Another 2 are literature reviews. Now, for anybody who wonders what a literature review is, it's basically like gathering all the information that you've got, having a look through it, and publishing your opinion on what other people have done. That's not science. It's an opinion piece, but it gets passed as science. It gets published. It'll probably pass through peer review to ensure that it gets published. But that's what it is. A literature review is me casting my opinion over whatever I've got before me. So I'm not adding anything new. I'm just basically adding my thoughts into that. So that's 2. So that makes 7. Another one is a position statement from another veterinary organisation, another veterinary body. So that's not science either. It's just their position statement. So that's 8. So of those 13 references that you've got to support your robust evidence-led process, 8 out of the 13 are either biased, opinion pieces, or another organisation's policy statement. A robust evidence-led process drawing expert opinion from a range of stakeholders. However, you don't include your own vets. You don't include the 18 to 20,000 vets that you represent there. You didn't seek their opinion, their expert opinion. Instead, you spoke on their behalf because you didn't give out a survey, you didn't canvass them for their opinions on the topic. Indeed, you're doing that now, retrospectively. So you're seeking expert opinions, but you are dismissing the opinions of approximately 18 to 20,000 experts that you represent. And they're experts in veterinary medicine, primarily. not behaviour of dogs. And you didn't ask users of electronic training collars. Now, surely if I were going to conduct robust evidence-led research into the use of drugs and the effect upon people and how it was received by the recipients, surely if I had a body of recipients there, I would ask them, would I not? Would I not canvass the opinions of the people that are affected by the process that I'm lobbying about, that I'm looking to investigate, that I wish to know more about? Would I not seek those people's experiences? Would I not consider that to be evidence? But you didn't do that. You haven't asked a single person who has used an electronic training collar. Instead, your evidence, your expert opinion that you've sought has been that of other stakeholders who share your view. That's what's classed as an echo chamber. And anybody with a scientific or inquiring mind would know that an echo chamber is the very last place that you would look to seek information, to seek contradictory evidence, to seek enough evidence to be able to inform objective, impartial decision making. This is a good bit. The key point to flag from our position that there is no reputable evidence that the use of electric shock collars prevents sheep worrying, especially when dogs are loose or unaccompanied. I know that you cited AW1402A, which is the Lincoln research commissioned by DEFRA into the use of electronic training collars. And had you gone into that research, you would have also seen that there was preliminary research, AW1402. And AW1402 looked at dogs with a history of chasing livestock and their tendency to chase livestock with the use of electronic training collars being added as a deterrent to evaluate and assess the effectiveness and the effect of that training tool, of the electronic training collar, on those dogs that would chase livestock. And what that study concluded, what that preliminary research concluded as, and is in print and is absolutely accessible, is that of the dogs that were tested, all dogs lost their interest in chasing sheep. They were off lead. There's no reputable evidence that the use of electric shock collars prevents sheep worrying, especially when dogs are loose or unaccompanied. So they were off lead. They were free to chase if they wanted to. And all of them lost their interest in chasing sheep. The BVA's position that dogs should always be on a lead when walked in any area with livestock. Define that. Define any area with livestock from a dog's perspective. Because I can show you a video that was recorded 50 years ago that a dog can be aware of the presence of livestock well over half a mile away. And they can run at extreme speed in order to act on the scent of that livestock. How does a human know when livestock is near? If a dog should be walked on a lead when near livestock, what is near livestock? And how do you account for a dog that has the capacity, the olfactory capacity, as you would know, you're a veterinary organisation, to be able to detect the scent of a prey animal long before the human even knows it's there? Or contained within gardens with secure boundaries, no problem at all, as this is the most effective way to stop these types of incidents occurring. By this logic, if I take a dog out and I cannot see a livestock animal, I'm not at my home anyway, because I'm taking my dog out for a walk and I can't see anything. So I let my dog off. I've already conformed to your two requirements. I would keep my dog on a lead if what I perceive to be is near livestock is the case. So as long as livestock are visible to me or I can hear them bleating or whatever, then I'd keep my dog on a lead. But I can't hear them bleating and they're not visible to me. I'm not home, so my secure garden doesn't really matter. So I give my dog a run. My dog suddenly smells the scent of a prey animal, of a sheep, of a goat, or of an alpaca, of a llama, or of a deer, or of a rabbit, or of a pheasant, or of anything that takes its fancy. A cat, anything that takes its fancy, and it goes. I've followed your advice. I've followed your advice, and this is why we're asking you the question that we're asking you. Where is your evidence to support your statement that reward-based training is the most effective training in that situation? Followed your advice. There are no livestock present as far as I'm concerned. I'm outside of my home, so it doesn't need to be fenced. That isn't the issue. I'm away from my home. I'm just letting my dog off, and now it's identified the scent or the sound of a prey animal and it goes. Where is your evidence, your scientific research, your robust research to show that I can get that dog to come back through reward or reward-based, as you would call it, training methods only? Why can you not present that? We're following your advice and it's failing. It has failed us. So what do we do now? I'll tell you the problem with this is that the incident has already happened. So whatever you would say would be post-event, and that's not good enough. We need to be preventative. We need to be stopping that incident from happening in the first place, which is exactly what we do when we talk about the inclusion of an electronic training collar, of a quality electronic training collar into a robust training program. I'll continue. Dogs should be trained consistently using positive reinforcement from a young age. And no problem with that. No, but dogs should be trained consistently. To say they're using positive reinforcement only is a lack of understanding. You can't have positive reinforcement without negative reinforcement, but I won't take you down that rabbit hole. But let's just go with you. Positive reinforcement. I give my dog a biscuit for sitting. I give my dog a piece of cheese for coming back. That's absolutely fine from a young age. No problem whatsoever. And owners should seek appropriate help from accredited professional behaviourists if they're concerned about their dog's behaviour. Why would I be concerned about my dog's behaviour if from a young age I've used positive reinforcement training, which is reward-based training, and you're saying that reward-based training is the most effective training? Why should I be concerned? What reason would I have to be concerned about my dog's behaviour if I'm following that process? Okay, so we come on to a second response. I think that one was dated the 8th of September, and this one is also dated the 8th of September 2023. So they're recent responses that you've given. Here we go again. This one's a little bit longer, okay? Not much, but a little bit. I can assure you that our policy position is based on a thorough scientific assessment. Thorough scientific assessment. 13 pieces of evidence, 13 references, 8 of which are either biased, literature reviews to opinion pieces, or somebody else's position statement. So you've got 5. Our policy position is based on a thorough scientific assessment of available research on data on how animal welfare is impacted by the use of shock collars. I love your use of the word shock collars. I'm going to let you have it. You can be as sensationalist as you like. Get that visceral response going. It won't work otherwise. You've got to make people angry. You've got to capture people emotively. You cannot be accurate. You can't say electronic pulse or static pulse because it doesn't have the same impact, does it? But anyway, here we go. Evidence demonstrates that positive training methods are the most effective training intervention for companion animals in terms of health, welfare and behavioural outcome. You're not saying in certain contexts or provided certain provisions are put in place. You are simply saying it is the most effective training intervention for companion animals in terms of health, welfare and behavioural outcomes. Let me just make this really, really clear for anybody who doesn't understand what positive training methods means. In this sense, they haven't actually explained it. Well, positive makes it sound like it's better, doesn't it? There's no such thing as a positive training method. We're talking about positive reinforcement, which is the addition or the inclusion of a thing that makes the behaviour more likely to happen that resulted in the addition of that thing. Okay, so you give a dog a biscuit for sitting, or you give your dog some praise when they come to you when you call them. That would be classed as positive reinforcement. But as I said earlier, and I don't want to go there, it can't exist in isolation. But that's a lack of understanding on the part of the person who's made the statement. Anyway, let them have that. We stand by this conclusion as there is ample evidence that shock collars can have a detrimental impact on the welfare of the animals they've been used upon. Now, I would ask you this. Let me ask you this, Dr. Malcolm. What can't you explain to me anything, whether it's drinking water, whether it's eating food, whether it's exercise, whether it's sunbathing, whether it's catching a ball, whether it's jumping up and down, in excitement in a river or what? You tell me anything whatsoever that cannot have the potential to have a detrimental impact on the welfare of the animal. I tell you there's nothing that in excess or used inappropriately cannot have a detrimental impact on the welfare of the animal. There is, however, No reliable data which supports the claim that the use of shock collars, there we go again, is effective in preventing livestock worrying and harm to livestock. I say again, I call you again to have a look at AW 1402, the preliminary study conducted by Lincoln University on behalf of DEFRA at taxpayers' expense that concluded that all dogs that were tested lost their interest in chasing livestock, and this is within a week. I also ask you to have a look at a video, which I shall post a link to at the bottom of this video on my YouTube channel, which shows Dr. Jonathan Cooper, who was a lead researcher on that Lincoln research, talking alongside myself before veterinary students, bizarrely enough, saying that dogs could not be trusted off lead despite his desires as a researcher to test whether or not his research was accurate or not. He could not permit the dogs to be trusted off lead amongst running sheep unless they had an electronic deterrent. What does that tell you about positive or reward-based training being the most effective training? They are the words that fall from the key researcher's mouth on camera, and I will share them with you. And I would ask you to debate that, or to discuss that, or to refute that, given that it came from the researcher's mouth on research that you yourself cite in your policy position.
Again, with research projects, there might be parts of you as a pure researcher want to do anything you can try to test all the different things, but we couldn't replicate that. So we couldn't go into a field of sheep and let a dog chase them without, I wouldn't say without having a deterrent, but having some. We couldn't set that up as a chase the sheep that you're not going to go and get electric stimulants. We couldn't set that up as a chase the sheep that you're not going to go and get electric stimulants.
The National Police Chief Council has highlighted that the majority of livestock worrying incidents involve dogs that have escaped from their homes. That isn't true. That's what was summarised as a result of the evidence that was received. The evidence that was received said in the vast majority of instances, dogs that attacked livestock were unaccompanied or there was no owner present. That's what the evidence says. What was concluded from that was that they must have escaped from their homes. Now let me give you an example of myself. I live on the edge of Dartmoor. There's very, very few properties on Dartmoor, very few. However, the number of attacks on Dartmoor is incredibly high. Exactly the same is true of Exmoor. Exactly the same is true of Bodmin Moor. Exactly the same is true of the Peak District, of the Lake District, of the Yorkshire Moors, of the Dales, of many, many rural locations throughout the country where there aren't extensive, intrusive urban conurbations nearby. There aren't housing estates backing onto this. This isn't a dog jumping over the wall and going and attacking. Granted, in some cases it is, but in the vast majority of cases it isn't. It's people who are out exercising and walking their dogs, and they lose control of their dogs when their dog suddenly catches the sight or scent or sound of an animal that the owner didn't know was present. So please refrain from using the National Police Chief Council 5 Force report as being a get out of jail free card for dogs having escaped homes and gardens. That was an assumption, it wasn't. And to go on, a recent statement by NFU Mutual regarding livestock attacks advocates that dogs should be kept on leads. No problem at all with keeping a dog on a lead, trained or otherwise, when you're in the visual presence of a livestock animal, and does not mention the use of shock collars. Now, there's multiple reasons for that. That's probably because the NFU has got no idea about how electronic training collars are used responsibly in order to instill avoidance in dogs towards livestock animals. Or, call me cynical, but it could be that the NFU sits hand in glove with the Kennel Club as leaders of the lobbying campaign to ban electronic training collars. Research by Howell and Bennett found that effectively managing a dog's environment such that it never has an opportunity to engage in predatory behaviour is the best way to prevent the behaviour. Now let me tell you about this research which you're citing here. Let me just tell you, Dr. Morley, that research is not research. Well, it is, but it's not scientific, is it? It's a survey, an online survey, which was completed by 84, apparently, dog trainers. And it was completed in Australia. And then there were 12 follow-up interviews. So of those 84 trainers, only 12 followed up. And effectively managing a dog's environment such that it never has an opportunity to engage in predatory behaviour is the best way to prevent the behaviour. So never letting your dog see or be near or hear or smell any kind of thing, any kind of animal or moving object that it would wish to chase is the best way to prevent it. So essentially live in a goldfish bowl with your dog. Now let me tell you, there's nothing whatsoever to back that statement up. That's an opinion piece. It's an opinion piece of the trainers, if they were trainers, because we don't know, because it was an online survey, that were questioned. They said that's the best way. So the best way for me to drive safely and avoid an accident is to never drive. That's what we're saying there, isn't it? You won't fall off your bicycle if you don't have a bicycle and you walk. Furthermore, the participants in the study underpinning the research, it's not a study underpinning the research, Dr. Morley, it's a questionnaire. It's an online questionnaire. That's not a study underpinning research. Also reported that early socialisation towards small animals and being rewarded for not chasing small animals as a young puppy had the strongest influence on preventing predatory behaviour expression in adult dogs. The participants in the study also reported, it doesn't say how many, it says the participants, so it's either all of them or it's a percentage of them, but it doesn't tell you how many. So what we're basically saying here is that if you take your dog, which is a predator, and you expose it to small, furry, moving animals as a puppy, then that's got the best effect on stopping it from chasing them in the future. That's a little bit like, say, I could take my heterosexual child and as a young baby, so from 2 years old to 8 years old, say, I could take them and I could expose them and flood them around females, and that would ensure that when my son becomes 16 years old, he will not be attracted to them. He will not ignore competing alternative motivators in order to get to girls. This is absolute naive nonsense. I've got nothing further to say on that. It shows a distinct lack of understanding, a distinct lack of experience if you think that an animal can be forged as an adult by what it experiences as a juvenile when you're or as an infant when you're talking about innate behaviours, as though behaviours do not develop as the animal develops, as though they do not open in turn with or in time with specific aspects of the animal's environment that nature has intended to happen. It's a staged process. As the animal develops, so the behaviours develop, because the behaviours develop in accordance with the animal's development in order to ensure that the animal goes on to thrive and to reproduce. And there's absolutely nothing whatsoever in this paper to support that statement. Some people said it, so it's science. And because some people said it and it's science, the British Veterinary Association, Dr. Morley, have included that in their position statement. That is your response to MPs. Terrible. This is why I want to get you on a table opposite me. Again, this evidence supports our position policy that dogs should be trained consistently using positive reinforcement from a young age. This has got nothing to do with dogs being trained using positive reinforcement from a young age. What you've said is that early socialisation towards small animals and being rewarded for not chasing small animals as a young puppy has the strongest influence in preventing predatory behaviour expression. So the only thing that you're saying is that I'll reward you for not chasing them. The rest of it is about exposure to them. And this is in line, this evidence, this unevidenced evidence, come on, for goodness sake. You're a representative, you're the key representative of the UK's biggest veterinary body, and that's your evidence. Dear Lord, how on earth did you get your position? It's embarrassing. You may find it helpful to read SORC's report on this issue. SORC, for anybody who doesn't know, is the Scottish Animal Welfare Commission, and which presents the most recent expert-led assessment of the available evidence and concludes that the use of e-collars should be banned. Now listen, this is going to come into a separate video. Because, Dr. Morley, I was invited to present before SORC, and I gave a presentation before SORC, and I was present whilst others spoke before SORC, and I know exactly who SORC are. I know what SORC are made up of, and I have email trails with members of SORC that I will present in a later video. So please, please do not present the Scottish Animal Welfare Commission as some kind of bastion for integrity, impartiality, or objectivity. Do not hold their report aloft as though it is some kind of sign from above that this is the right thing to do. This is evidenced. This is scientifically proven. Because I can assure you there is a lot more involved than that. So to conclude the evidence, to conclude the letter, let's have a look. DEFRA for England and the Welsh and Scottish governments have concluded that welfare harm to dogs and cats from the use of shock collars is well documented, and that the type of behaviours for which shock collars are intended to prevent can be addressed effectively through the use of reward-based training methods. This is the best part. Let me just repeat that. The type of behaviours which shock collars are intended to prevent can be addressed effectively through the use of reward-based training methods. Okay, so let me draw your attention to the results of a 5-year survey conducted by the Association of Responsible Dog Owners at joinardo.com. 2,500 respondents completed that survey. Over 70% of users of electronic training collars are for controlling off-lead dogs. The vast majority of that is for dogs that are chasing other animals. So that would be a principal reason why people use electronic training collars, which you'd like to call shock collars. I'll call them electronic training collars or electronic training aids. So you're saying that that purpose, that reasoning, which draws me right the way back to the original question that you were asked by the MP who sent you the email to which you've responded with this, you're saying that those types of behaviours which shock collars are intended to prevent can be addressed effectively through the use of reward-based training methods. Where is the evidence for that? I'm asking you again. The MPs have asked you, members of the public have asked you, I'm asking you again. Where is the evidence to support that statement? That the stopping of dogs from chasing other animals, other protected, innocent, vulnerable animals, the attacking of them or the killing of them, can be stopped, effectively stopped, through the use of reward-based training methods. Where is the evidence for that? And if you have evidence for that, and if that is your position statement, then why are you telling people that dogs should be kept on a lead and gardens should be securely fenced? Which one is it? Stopping of dogs from chasing other animals, other protected, innocent, vulnerable animals, the attacking of them or the killing of them, can be effectively stopped through the use of reward-based training methods. Where is the evidence for that? And if you have evidence for that, and if that is your position statement, then why are you telling people that dogs should be kept on a lead and gardens should be securely fenced? Which one is it? Are you avoiding the situation, or are you saying that training can resolve the situation? Because we're telling you that electronic training collars, together with a body of evidence to support it, can and do stop dogs from wanting to chase those animals, given specific chosen animals in the first place. That training carries over whether the owner is present or not, because it isn't the presence of the owner that the dog associates with the unintended or with the unpleasant consequence, but the animal itself that it would choose to chase, which is how aversive conditioning works. And if you understand the first thing about behavioural psychology, you would know that. But it would appear that you're either choosing to ignore it or you don't. We have had enough of organisations influencing government, having direct access, having exclusive access to influence government with their version of science, their false science, their lack of science, or their biased science, their cherry-picked science. We're sick and tired of it. It doesn't give the whole story. Consequently, decision makers are lacking the ability to make informed decisions based on the whole science. That isn't good enough. This, what has become a popular way of dealing with policy, by having poor science. You will see the hashtag on a lot of my posts, where's the science though? There's a reason for that. Because as you will have heard from what is being presented by the principal body for the Veterinary Association in the UK, there is none. Where's the science to confirm the fact that behaviours for which shock collars are used can be effectively resolved using reward-based training? Where is the evidence to show that predation by dogs towards other animals, which is a massive, massive animal welfare issue, not just in the UK, but throughout the world, can be effectively prevented or stopped or taught that it never happens again through the use of reward-based training methods alone. And I'll stand before anybody and I'll challenge anything that anybody says who opposes the use of electronic training collars to control, to prevent predatory behaviour by dogs towards other animals or towards other living or moving objects. I will stand before anybody and fight my case because I know I'm right. I know I'm right. And that's not ego speaking. That's years of research and that's years of experience saying that I'm right. And I'm coming from somebody who was the other side of the fence, as I've said before. So this isn't any kind of heavy bias on my part to support what I've always believed. I didn't believe this. I was very, very much in line with the BVA's position statement. But I came to understand, to realise, to recognise exactly how false and flawed and exactly how ideology driven that statement is. We have had enough. Policy should not be based on such flimsy, non-existent evidence as is presented here.